and gentlemen, you already know who it is. Welcome back to another RotoHackers podcast. I am AJ Herschel, also known as The Kid. I am here with it's Judah Buddha, former interim head coach of the Redskins, and also Fat Thor apparently. And I am here with the illustrious It's Jared. And yes, I had to go down another key because I was not going to ruin my voice once again.
It's okay.
Today. How are you gentlemen doing today? How's it going? How's your fantasy weeks going?
Not bad. You might notice I have a little bit of color in my beard, and I am doing the trick or treat walk. I'll have to leave at 11 today.
Okay.
That's why I requested we do a little early. You guys, of course, free to keep going. But yeah, my fantasy week. An interesting waiver wire. I thought it was an interesting waiver wire. And, but I'm more interested to hear about Jared. I know I have some inside information about some big trades. Big trades.
I feel like everybody who signed up for fantasy this year got some sort of little fantasy trades for dummies booklet, and it said, "Don't trade until after week 6." And so tons and tons of people just would not trade no matter what you offered them. And then all of a sudden this week, they're just flooding. I mean, every league just getting flooded with offers, I've been offering stuff to people since day one. I mean, we get to like round 2 in my draft, and I'm like, okay, that guy took the guy I wanted. Who can I take in round 3 and round 6 that I can pair together to send? So I don't ever wait to do that, but some people apparently do because people got super serious about it this week.
Wow.
So I've been, especially the teams where I've got especially the teams where I've got like a 5-1 record or a 6-0 record or something like that. I've been, looking ahead towards the playoffs, like those teams, unless they just have some monumental collapse, they're going to make it in. So, so I got Christian McCaffrey in a deal.
Really?
Yeah. And Judah's in my league with Judah. So he thinks this is like, he thinks I just completely robbed the guy blind. I don't think it's that bad.
You're a pirate.
So the deal was, I gave up a good bit of, I think, talent in the deal. But there are like little qualifiers to each one of those guys. So I traded Devontae Adams, Mark Ingram, Marlon Mack, and Dak.
And Dak Prescott.
And Dak. And I got McCaffrey, his backup, Philip Lindsay, and who's the other guy? I don't even remember who else I got. I just did it for McCaffrey. But so
Carson.
Carson Wentz.
Okay.
So
Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz.
That's not bad.
Yeah. So I gave up a lot of players. Devontae Adams is out with turf toe, but like I said, I did this for reasons like Adams is out with turf toe. I don't know when he's going to be back. Marlon Mack is fine, but he's, he can have a good game or he can put up, 7 points if the Colts, fall behind and aren't able to run the ball. Ingram's had a couple of big games against bad teams, but I think a lot of those guys are kind of guys that I can replace with something on my bench or something on the waiver wire. Whereas McCaffrey's a guy that can give you 20, 30, 40 points. So
McCaffrey is by far the best fantasy producer from all positions.
He's your quarterback for the year.
Maybe except, I think even quarterback, he's been doing better than.
Yeah, he's like a quarterback plus a running back.
Yep.
Hey.
Yeah. So
that's
anyway, but that guy tried to trade him for like Sammy Watkins, Breida, and Sterling Shepard earlier in the year, and the league vetoed it. Rightly so. So I looked back. I was trying to get Saquon at first, and the guy who had him wouldn't take him. So I'm like, this guy gave up McCaffrey. Was about to give up McCaffrey for almost nothing. I think if I make it better, but still get a good deal on it, like people, will maybe not veto it, but yeah. So.
Oh, fun. So after Thursday night, one of my leagues, I'm a little bit hurting because I needed some points there, but I didn't. Unfortunately, the person still has Christian McCaffrey in the bye week, so I'm going to hope that works out. But so what were your guys' thoughts on Thursday after watching the Broncos get obliterated by Matt Moore? Yeah, Judah Buddha, let's start with you. What did you think?
Well, I had just picked up I just picked up Mahomes in that guillotine league. I paid $505 out of 1,000.
Oh my goodness!
And in retrospect, it was really dumb because I mean, you really shouldn't pay that much for any quarterback. So I think I can still survive. That's a league where I also have strong. I also had Kamara. So maybe I won't survive this week. Although I do have Latavius Murray. So both places I have Kamara, I have Latavius Murray. I made a trade this week. And then I have Mahomes in that 6-person league we're in. But I also have Deshaun Watson in that one too. So, I don't know. I was just more sad because he's such a great player. It's funny. I was like, this probably helps my fantasy chances, but it really struck me. I was like, man. Of course, that was when I thought he was going to be out the rest of the season. At this point, they're saying 3 weeks, but I think he's going to wait through the
bye.
4 weeks.
Yikes. Jared, how do you think this affects the rest of the Chiefs roster?
Yeah, that's kind of the question for me because I don't own Patrick Mahomes in any leagues. Like people, like he was just too expensive. I mean, he went, second round in some leagues, third round. I mean, I don't know if I remember him last into the fourth in any round. And so people used high picks on him, and it was just too high for me. And so I think so I've got Tyreek Hill in a couple of leagues. I've got Travis Kelce in a few. Yeah, it's frustrating, especially for Hill because I waited so long to get him back. Came back and had a good week last week. Still managed a touchdown with Matt Moore this week. But it's tough for me to trust what he's going to do the next few weeks. It's not exactly like a Michael Thomas, Teddy Bridgewater situation where Thomas has actually ended up performing better than I thought he would. Teddy Bridgewater's been better, and just the type of receiver Thomas is. He gets that volume. With Tyreek Hill, he's just more reliant on the big play. And I don't know, maybe Matt Moore shakes off some of the rust, but he was like, he made some throws, but he was also like overthrowing receivers by 15 yards on some throws too. So
wide open too.
Yeah, right. And so that's not particularly encouraging. So that's tough. And then like the Chiefs running game, like, I said Tuesday, like I wouldn't start Chiefs running backs until they show me something. And so Thursday, what they showed me is LaShawn McCoy's the guy. But I don't know what you were going to get out of him, even with Patrick Mahomes in there. I think he had like 8-point-something points Thursday night. And especially now with him gone, I don't know what you're going to get. And Damian Williams is droppable basically now. So yeah, it's not great for the Chiefs. And then Kelce, like I said, he's been, it's hard to call it, a disappointment. He is a disappointment. He's been solid and consistent every week, but just hasn't been getting touchdowns. So
yeah, it should be interesting to see how it goes forward for the rest of the year. And I know you guys have your own. I know you have your own stardom systems, but I think I've noticed that we're getting kind of into the area where a bunch of teams have questionable players or questionable teams. So I have a question for you with just a couple teams, especially this week. So we'll start with this one. Houston has a wide receiver problem. DeAndre Hopkins is not producing. And Will Fuller isn't producing. He produced one game, but then he went back to 7 points a game. Is DeAndre Hopkins startable, especially this week after I think he's put up 10 points maybe once this year? If I have someone who has a good matchup, say John Brown against Miami, or I'm going with someone else say Larry Fitzgerald maybe, who have good matchups, do I have to keep Hopkins in? Isn't he going to explode eventually? What's going on? Jared, you can start us.
Yeah, I traded for DeAndre in another
Oh,
league
okay.
this week. I mean, again, I didn't give up that much. I gave up Mixon, who's doing nothing, and I don't think is going to do anything because of that line. Damian Williams and Calvin Ridley. I mean, Calvin Ridley was the best part of that deal because he's just like a few points off from what Hopkins has done. But I'm a believer in DeAndre Hopkins. I don't really know. I think the Texans are just. Hopkins is not looking down the field quite as much, because the line's still, even with Tunsil there, the line's still so bad for the overall. So he's been throwing to his tight ends more. They've got now Duke Johnson. He's going to him more.
Yeah.
So, it's hard for me to, I would never bench DeAndre unless it was a situation where he just had a terrible matchup and someone else had a great matchup. But like the Colts are not an intimidating matchup. So I wouldn't bench him for someone like, Fitz or something like that, even though, they're both good options. But I think DeAndre is just due to kind of, get some progression in terms of his numbers. And on a side note, that's a pet peeve of mine is like fantasy analysts use the term positive regression.
Yeah.
And that drives me crazy. And I'm like, there's a word for that. It's called progression, So,
No, that's not the same. No, it's there's no such thing as positive regression. It's just called regression, but it's easier for them, like people think when they think regression, they think to the negative.
Because when you regress, you're not doing as well.
No, not necessarily. In charts, when you regress, you can regress. You're regressing away from the mean, so you're just regressing away from the middle. So you can actually go positive. To us, it's a positive thing, but it's not actually positive. Or
True, but if you regress from the mean, that means the mean is the average. So he's either regressing with points going up or points going down.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah.
And his points are going down. It's not good because I just checked the wide receiver average. Apparently, my Yahoo quote unquote stat of the week was DeAndre Hopkins has scored 11 point blah 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 points per game since 2017. The league average is 4.7. To which I just said, yeah, that's because you counted literally every wide receiver in the book.
Yeah, it still makes no sense. I've never dealt with that in terms of charts, so I didn't know that you could positively regress. But still, the definition of progression is the process of developing towards a more advanced state. I feel like we should use regression and progression, but they use positive regression, which this makes it just annoys the hell out of me. Anyway,
it's just a stats term. It's like, huh?
I don't blame him for hating it. I don't blame him.
Well, progression just means he's getting better. Positive regression means that, like, his stats are showing that he's actually catching up to where he's supposed to be, stats wise. So if he has, like, I don't know, 100 air yards and he hasn't had a touchdown yet, then once he gets a touchdown, it's positive regression. He's getting back towards the mean.
True, but he hasn't had 100 yards yet. He's only been having 70-yard, 8-target games.
I still hate it. It's like GIF. Like technically, maybe it's supposed to be GIF instead of GIF, but I don't like it. So.
Fair enough. Judah Buddha, what do you think? What do you think about DeAndre Hopkins and Will Fuller too?
Well, Will Fuller, I think he dropped a couple really important ones. Of course, they were on national television. He's only had about 4 drops the whole season. But I think actually this goes along with Ridley. In fact, teams are throwing in a much more varied distribution. So quarterbacks are throwing in a much more, like, they've gotten away. It was a bygone year, probably only like 3 years ago, when you had one guy and you just peppered him, or you had your running back and it was like a real binary thing. But nowadays they, with the air raid offense and just with a lot of statistics showing out that, it's kind of common sense. If you don't just target one person, the defense doesn't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So I think teams have started building out like a more varied strategy. I'm trying to find Watson. But yeah, so he's been going with like a 2 tight end attack. And so what that does is just it gives a lot of different targets. It opens it up, and if people and here's the other thing is this is why I was a little shy of going DeAndre this year. Is I'm always shy of him because of that 1 year he had such bad. He was terrible for me, and it's because he's not great route runner as far as getting open. He has amazing hands, and that makes up for it. But if you triple double team him. And lately it's been triple teaming him. It's really hard for him to get open. And like you said, Jared, if Watson isn't getting a lot of time in the pocket, and they're not, although their offensive line has shored up a little bit in the last 2 weeks.
Well, granted, they played the Falcons, who don't have that much of a.
They have zero pass rush.
And then the Chiefs, whose pass rush is not great.
But I'm just saying they're getting healthier. They're getting a couple of guys back. And so, I mean, so he needs a lot of time to progress. He doesn't get a lot of separation. Usually what he does is just, makes up for it by going up for the 50-50 ball and bringing it down because his hands are amazing. His
legs even.
Yeah, his legs, his leap. But it's just hard for Watson to trust that when he's got some much more wide open passes with everybody, wide open targets with everybody being on him. So that's my take.
All right. So then what do you think about the Minnesota Vikings then? Because Thielen had 2 touchdowns 2 weeks ago. Diggs had 3 touchdowns 3 weeks ago. And typically in fantasy, if you have a 30-point game, unless your name is Christian McCaffrey, you're going to go down in your point total this week. So is Diggs a stardom this week? We've already talked about Cousins not really being a consistent stardom every week, but especially Diggs and Thielen, because Cook is an automatic stardom. But the Vikings wide receivers, can you trust them this week? Judah Buddha, we can start with you first.
I would say not Diggs, but Thielen is. I think he's pretty dependable because he just seems to be like Kirk Cousins' go-to guy. Look. Diggs is going to be – he's probably the more talented at route running, at receiving, all of those than
Thielen.
I got a Thielen. But I don't know. It's just going to be hard. It depends. It feels like these last 2 weeks it was a squeaky wheel thing where they, complained. And going forward, I just don't know. There's just always the possibility that they're going to throw 20 times in a game, and that's all, and then run the rest. I think especially you have to look at the matchup. If it's an easy matchup for Cook. Yeah. If it's an easy matchup for Cook, I mean, they're just going to run the ball. So that makes, to me, Diggs a little boomer bust, and you got to kind of lower your expectation for Thielen.
Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with what Judah said. Thielen to me this year is just kind of like a Julian Edelman light or a Cooper Kupp light. He's going to get 8 targets a game. He's going to have a lot of 60-yard, 1 touchdown games and things like that. Diggs, I avoided both Vikings wide receivers. Didn't draft them in any of my 17 leagues. Ended up trading for Diggs in one because I was just trying to get rid of Antonio Brown, but then I turned around and dumped him too. It's just like they really committed to that running, like zone blocking running game this year with Cook. And they don't trust Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins doesn't trust Kirk Cousins, so
what do you mean by that?
What's that? I just don't trust him. I advocated for starting him against the Eagles because I didn't think they'd be able to run the ball. They'd have to throw, and the Eagles had a terrible secondary. But most weeks, I just wouldn't roll with Diggs unless it's a really good matchup and a matchup, a good pass matchup and one where they're not going to be able to run the ball. But I just don't. I read a article, or I think maybe it was an interview with Cousins one time where he was talking about Jay Gruden was trying to get him to throw certain routes, and he was just like, if I try to throw that ball, it's going to get intercepted. And so Kirk Cousins just doesn't even trust his own arm, and the Vikings don't really either. So Diggs will have big games, and you can kind of predict some of them, kind of like the Philadelphia game. But for the most part, he would be riding my bench. He would just be like an occasional like flex or wide receiver 2 plug-in.
Which is honestly kind of crazy when you think about the fact that Kirk Cousins, literally last year with Minnesota, as much as everyone complained about him, he threw for the most touchdowns and the least interceptions in his career last year. He was a 30-10 quarterback, and this year it's like he just doesn't want to let go of the ball. I don't know what it is. And so do you think that Diggs, you can start him this week? Thielen's getting Darius Slay. They're playing the Lions. Do you think Diggs could be a flex play this week? After a 30-point game, do you think he could still get you 10-plus points?
I'd say with trepidation, maybe. He's against Darius Slay has been shut down.
No, Thielen's on Darius.
For Diggs.
Yeah.
Oh.
I would still be pretty hesitant. I mean, the next two after this one, he's got Washington and Kansas City. So I think there's more potential there, except, the bad thing now, I mean, Washington, they could just blow them out on the ground. Kansas City, I would have said, well, they're going to have to throw the ball, but I mean, without, to keep up with them, but without Mahomes now, I don't know. So, it always depends on your options, but like Philadelphia, like I said, I felt really good about that Philadelphia game for the Vikings passing game. But like, there's no like obvious situation that I see like going forward at least in the near future where I'd be like, oh yeah, for sure, I'm starting him there. I mean, maybe, but.
So would you think, say this week, would you start, assuming Christian Kirk plays, would you think you'd start him over Kirk against the Giants?
That'd be a tough one.
Yeah. If Kirk was completely healthy, I would probably feel better about Kirk if I wasn't, unless you were just like chasing points in the matchup. But with him, with Kirk being banged up anyway, to where if he plays, he may not be 100%. I would probably go with Diggs in that.
Okay, Judah Buddha.
Yeah, I mean, of course, it depends. If it's a full point PPR, I'd go with Kirk. He's going to get more targets. But Diggs can do so much more with just a few, few targets. Yeah. I mean, it really depends on how much risk you're willing to take. He is going to be boom or bust. He's, I don't think he's going to come away with like 100 yards. It feels like he gets touchdowns or he doesn't. That's it.
And the Lions are not. You saw what the Packers did to the Lions on the ground. Yeah, the Vikings are probably just going to ram Cook down their throats. So,
and it's a divisional game, so I don't see them getting real experimental. Whereas the last 2 weeks were kind of like, all right, we'll see what we can do, get you guys some more targets. We'll get Diggs going after we get. This week, I think it's like, okay, back to business, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, right.
We got to win our division.
Yeah, and it's on the road. So yeah.
Intriguing. All right, I got one more team question before we move on to start him, sit him, because I know Judah Booty, you don't have a lot of time. So all of the Chargers have been so inconsistent, especially it's not so much Austin Eckler, but in recent weeks, the Chargers have not been looking good. Keenan Allen has been super inconsistent. Rivers is hardly startable, and Eckler and Gordon are somehow in the mix, and I can't remember the last time I ever started a second Chargers wide receiver. So do you think any of the Chargers are going to be startable this week at all? I mean, Keenan Allen, you kind of have to, but they're playing the Titans. Do you start Gordon? Do you start Eckler? How do you guys feel about LA Chargers, not the Rams? Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I think you have to start Keenan. I've got him in some leagues and he's had a couple of down weeks, but it's almost kind of like a Hopkins situation with him too, where, man, it would be really tough for me to bench him unless it's just a really bad matchup. And I've got another much better option. You've got Hunter Henry in there too. So, I think maybe he's the safest Charger at this point, like at the tight end spot where He's going to give you a good floor with that. He's not going to give you 2 touchdowns and 99 yards every week, but he's gonna have a good floor. Melvin Gordon, I've got a couple of leagues where I just don't really have much of a choice, but to start him, I've waited for him to get back. I counted on him being, a important piece of my team once he got back. And so, with guys on a bye, I just don't really have, in my leagues where I have him, I don't have a better option. So I've got to roll with him, but I don't feel great about it. I think he'll get going. It may just be kind of like with him missing so much time, just shaking some rust off from inactivity and stuff. So I'm hoping he'll get going. As far as the Chargers, other receivers like Mike Williams has started to wake up a little bit. Maybe that's going to get better. But at the same time, it's been in games where it's been down games for Keenan. So maybe it's tied to that. So I would not feel good about starting anybody really other than Keenan or Henry. But a lot of people are probably like me in a situation where they just have to go with Gordon. I guess the only positive I think there is at this point, I think, Gordon's been back long enough that he's going to be the guy. He's going to be the main guy. Eckler's going to be, the more of the two, unless for some reason, it keeps going like this and they're just not doing anything. And they say, oh, well, maybe we need to go back to Eckler more, even though I don't think that's really the issue.
Judah Buddha, what do you think?
I actually do think it's part of their issue. Now, their biggest issue is their Tunsil and whoever are they're two important linemen. O-linemen have been.
Yeah, it's definitely not Tunsil. That's the Texans.
Oh, Texans. Yeah, that was back Texans. Yeah. No, Okun. Does that sound right? I think Okun might be out for the rest of the year, and they're just dealing with all kinds of injury problems. And then with having Melvin Gordon come back, I feel like they have just really tried to get him going for some reason. All of a sudden, they're in love with this guy who, has been trying to get more money from them. I don't know. It's really weird. I do feel like if they went to Eckler more, the game script would be, the attack, depending on the game script, if they're behind, which they have been in the last 2 games, instead of having Melvin Gordon run around in circles, behind that bad line, let's get a little safety valve in Eckler. Now, I just traded Eckler for Latavius Murray because that's the league I have.
Interesting.
I have
Kamara
in. So I don't know. Like it's hard to really know. I'm not going to trust rational coaching. I'm not going to make the assumption of rational coaching. I'm going to go with Latavius Murray and that team over Eckler, just not knowing what they're going to do. Though I do think the path to success for them has more to do with Eckler than Gordon until that line gets healthier, until they do something about that line.
Well, I did just check the Chargers injury report. They have 1 tackle in limited practice, and that's it.
Yeah, I think it's because Okun was put on IR.
Yeah, I think they did lose somebody for the year or so.
Okay. Well, thank you for humoring me with those questions. Thank you, says. Thomas H. Yeah, that pretty much is every Chiefs owner out there right now.
It could have been a lot worse, though.
That is true.
When this happens, it'll tear the tendons that are holding there's always the worry that it happens again. Anytime you dislocate anything, it's gonna. So I don't know. It's a lot better than I thought it would be.
Yeah. Ryan N., welcome back to the show. Thanks you for tuning in. We're here to answer your questions as usual. Thomas H., you used my pun. I like it. How is Ramsey going to impact Julio and Ridley? Interesting. Now, I know, Judah Booty, you have your own qualms with Julio Jones. So what do you think?
He's unnecessarily harsh on Julio.
True.
Everybody always thinks he's like this wonderful, amazing wide receiver.
Larry Fitzgerald just this week, I think it was just this week, called him the best he had ever seen.
There you go.
Yeah.
But I know it's Larry Fitzgerald. What does he know?
Just top 5 wide receiver in yards.
Look, I think if it, NFL wise, yeah, man, I'd want to have him on my team for sure. He'd be the number one. But fantasy wise, he's not much better than right now. He's not much better than Ridley. He's better, but not that much. And he has a hard time getting touchdowns historically. He gets a lot of yards, but this year, like I said about Hopkins, I think he's down to 20% of the pass share on the team. 20% of 100, right? So he's not getting the majority of the passes anymore. Not even close. Not even half. Not even a third. I could keep going. But anyways, not even a fourth. So I think that he probably is going to have more touchdowns. He's probably going to, I think their losses have a lot to do with him not being more involved. But it doesn't look like their overall strategy has too much to do with him. Other, like in a quantity, from a quantity perspective.
Interesting. So would you start him? I mean, obviously he's Julio. So do you think this is Ridley's game to go all out against the Rams then?
Yeah, absolutely. I would not start Julio this week.
Interesting. You wouldn't even start him at all.
Well, I mean, depending, I'd start like certain people. I'd start Chark over him.
Ah, okay.
If it's Chark week.
We've been there. Yep. Jared, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. And there probably aren't really realistically a lot of people that know what's going to happen, like with Jalen Ramsey with the Rams, like what it's going to be like in week 1. I mean, he's a great cornerback. I guess they're just going to plug him in. I don't know exactly. I mean, I don't know if they're going to use him, just match him up on Julio or what. So I think with all the unknowns there, I would, unless I've got him, just a clearly much better option than Julio, I would still stick him in my lineup. And you could get regular Julio production, or Jalen Ramsey could shut him down if he's on him the whole time. I would feel better about Ridley in some ways. I get just proportionally, based on, where you drafted these guys. Ridley's doing well. He's pretty consistent. So I would feel pretty good about throwing him in there. But it is a tough situation a little bit for those owners, because you don't know exactly what you're getting with how Ramsey's going to fit in, with the Rams off or defense. So I think you just gotta, at some point with that, kind of trust the talent and hope it works out.
Yeah. Judah, I'm still trying to figure out, you always talk about the year Julio burned you. So I've still been trying to figure it out. The only year I can guess is 2017.
I don't know. I don't talk about the year Julio never burned me. Julio actually won me a league.
Really?
His rookie year.
Because he's, out of how many years? Over the last 2014, 2018, he's always had over 1,400 yards.
He's always had a lot of yards. And in a PPR, he's always been pretty, PPR-wise, he's always been great.
Yeah, and only one of those years he got under 6 touchdowns, though.
Yeah, he had that one year where he was just allergic to touchdowns, and just he went so many games without a touchdown.
And dropping him too.
He was dropping him.
Granted, they were giant contested balls thrown to the corner of the end zone because the Falcons were the last.
Yeah, but he's the best wide receiver ever. I think the other thing is he's always nicked up. It seems like this year's the healthiest I've actually seen him.
Yeah.
But in past years, like it's always like a turf toe or a
ankle,
patella or an ankle or something. He's such a big guy. Maybe it has to do, with just lumbering that big body around. I don't know.
He's very lean though. He's almost got like if his torso was out a little bit more, he's almost got like a swimmer's build or something, because he's like 6'3", and just like very lean and muscular. And I think that's part of it. I think it's kind of like what I said with like Saquon Barkley at the start of the year, where like, man, he just looks like an injury waiting to happen, because he's got these huge thighs and it's impressive, but like with certain other parts of your body, like your knee or your ankle, like it just feels like, man, can that support that? You know,
You almost want him to have cankles, right? You want him to have big
yeah, right, yeah,
big old elephant ankles.
Yeah.
Hold up that big body.
Oh boy, Ryan N says he has this huge complex question. Ryan N, you're talking to the unauthorized reporters of fantasy football. Complex questions are our forte. So let's see what we got here. So he has his entire bench injured or on buys. That is rough. He has the minimum healthy players to start. Adrian Peterson's at flex. He can pick up Auden Tate and start him, but he has to drop someone. But someone dropped DJ Moore in my league, so I have to make a drop there. Question, I guess, is do I roll with AP and pick up DJ Moore, or do I make 2 drops and start Auden Tate? Wow. Who wants to tackle that first?
So I think it depends on, like, I don't know what your record is, how bad you need to win. I don't think you're going to get anything out of Adrian Peterson this week, against San Francisco.
Oh, yeah.
I started him last week against the Dolphins, and that was a one-time thing pretty much probably for the season, especially because Geis is coming back. So, DJ Moore, I mean, I know DJ Moore has been, again, I don't know the depth of your league here or how valuable he would be for you to pick up, but Panthers receivers, you just don't know exactly what you're going to get out of them, as sort of a combination of just how much they're going to McCaffrey and how much they're their quarterback situation. So DJ Moore, I mean, he's got a really solid floor.
Mm-hmm.
I guess 4 out of 6 weeks he's been at 12 points or higher. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. I mean, that's not a guy you want to leave on the waiver wire. So if you're going to pick him up, I don't know who else you've got that might be a possibility to throw in Tate for. But I don't think you're going to get anything out of Peterson this week. So if it's close enough that you think that's going to make a difference in your, winning your matchup, and you're not like 6-0 or something, then you might be better off picking up Tate and Moore, but not really knowing who else is on your bench. I don't really know who to tell you to drop for him.
Judah Buddha, what do you think? I know you're an Auden Tate. I know you're an Auden Tate fan.
I do like Auden Tate. I would say, though, there's a philosophical thing that I've had to learn over the years is sometimes you got to take the L. Like I've ruined whole seasons by trying to save my 1 week before, in which, like, I just had everybody on bye. If I had just taken the L instead of like scrambling, like, oh, I got to drop this guy. Maybe I'll be able to get him back on the waiver wire.
This is coming from the person who also dropped people to pick up 6 kickers 1 week. Let's be specific.
Yeah, the league, most leagues, Yahoo has made a change now. So if you like pick up somebody and drop them within a certain amount of time, they stay like other
it's
people.
Like same day, I think.
Yeah, people can still pick them up. But back in the day, man, you can really churn and burn.
You could.
But depending on your record, if you have a decent enough record, I'm taking in one league. I have a bad record, but I just got to take the L because I don't want to drop these I have a really good, from my perspective, I don't want to drop somebody like Devin Singletary.
You can drop the Chargers D, Adrian Peterson, or your boy Rojo.
See, I wouldn't. I got the same thing. I don't want to drop Rojo, but you can. I mean, that would be a guy to drop. AP, I would drop AP over Rojo.
So do you think you should cut both of them or just go DJ Moore?
Wait, are you holding on to the Chargers D as like your second D? I wouldn't do that.
No. Yeah, I mean, for me, like now seeing that, like I would feel 100% fine about dropping any of those guys. Yeah, I mean, the Chargers D, if that's not your starting defense this week, drop them.
If it is, like, go out and get the Falcons or something.
Well, I mean, Yeah, it's the Chargers have been they're weird because they've got a ton of talent, but they just are garbage. But they're also playing Ryan Tannehill this week, so
Oh, that's right. That might
so that could be. So if they're starting for you, don't drop them. But if they're starting for you, I wouldn't have any problem dropping AP and Rojo. If they're not, drop the Chargers D and AP.
Intriguing. So there you go. Ryan N. He has the Bills and the Chargers.
Drop the Chargers.
There you go.
That's an easy one. Drop the Chargers. The Bills have a great set of matchups for like the next month,
and they've already had their bye. So
yeah.
I dropped the Chargers so hard.
Yeah. Thomas H says Thursday night games are brutal for fantasy football. Some teams like the Broncos aren't ready to play after a short turnaround. That is the truth. Oof.
Some teams like the Broncos aren't ready to play most weeks. So.
It was weird watching. What's the quarterback's name for the Broncos?
Joe Flacco.
I'm gonna get a lot of flack over that. I know, but it was sad watching him. Like we've talked before about like sort of watching the psychology of players. I try to imagine myself as his teammate and watching his nonverbals. I felt like, man, I would be really discouraged right now if I was winning. He just looked so defeated.
He looked like Jay Cutler when he came back and played for the Dolphins. Like I'm here to collect my paycheck.
Wow.
It was worse.
Brutal approximation.
It was worse. Cutler at least would have this like I don't give a care, but I felt like Joe looked discouraged. He just looked like this is just or overwhelmed, whereas Cutler just be like, I'll go smoke a cigarette later.
Interesting. It's called Ryan N said the Bills do play the Eagles next week though, right? He was going to plug the Chargers in week 8.
Let's see, who are the Chargers playing next week? That Eagles matchup, the Bills I think are at home on it. So
the Bills almost shut down.
Chargers get the Bears. Oh wow.
Yeah, I mean, I see where he's coming from, but it's in Chicago.
Ouch.
It's in Chicago. The Chargers' run defense has been terrible. I mean, this week, like even with them getting Tannehill, like I would not be surprised if Derrick Henry ran for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns on him. So, I think you're still good. But Buffalo's got a good defense at home. Philly can't run the ball very well. I think you're safe with just rolling with them.
Buffalo's tied for the top. They're top 2. I mean, they're number 2, tied for number 2 with fantasy points and just DBOA. I think they're pretty high.
Yeah, I mean, they're no New England Patriots who are your starting quarterback for the week, but they're really, really good.
They've been a better like real life defense than fantasy because they're not like getting defensive touchdowns a ton or stuff like that. But they're like they're very safe for you.
Oh yeah, you're right. I'm thinking of the 49ers. They're number 2.
Oh yeah.
Bills are actually like 9.
Yeah. No, I think they're higher than that.
But they've played harder teams. They're about to play Miami twice. They're about to play Washington twice,
and then the Philly. Well, no, just Washington once, but then Philly at home. Like Carson Wentz struggled in Atlanta.
Yeah.
So I think you're okay with just going with them. I don't think there's going to be a big difference between them and the Chargers at Chicago next week.
Yeah. So he says basically the end game, the end game, if I should say, is worth drop. Is it worth dropping Chargers D in order to start Tate over AP?
For me, for sure. Although again, like I would probably be more fine than Judah and AJ, maybe even with if you're really worried about it, even dropping Ronald Jones because he had 4 carries last week. They keep mixing in not just Barber, but also that third running back. So if you're really worried about having the Chargers defense for next week, like I'd be fine dropping Jones too. But I think the consensus is like definitely do drop somebody and get Tate and DJ Moore both.
Oh yeah, especially since. Judah, I know you're a huge Ronald Jones fan, but I have him in a couple leagues just out of necessity. I needed to pick him up. And he had like 1 week where he out-touched Peyton Barber, and then Barber took back most of the carries. So
He does so much more with each touch.
but he's too game script dependent. That like we were always saying, like Jared always says, coaches are stubborn. And so Ronald Jones could get 15 carries or he could get 6. He could get 3 carries. I think he's too game dependent to bet on. And DJ Moore is much more consistent than Ronald Jones right now, especially.
The Bucks' third string back was the one that got the touchdown against Carolina last week, right?
Gunawale.
Yeah.
Yes, that guy.
He did almost nothing with all his touches.
Yeah.
But he scored the touchdown. That's what matters.
So if Judah's got to go in a minute, then I don't know how strict that.
Yeah, I got to go.
Okay. So you want to do your stardom situms or?
Well, okay. I just have a question. Actually, I'm going to break the rules. It's not really a stardom situm because you can't start him this week. But so I picked up. I should prepare Cam Newton for this.
Oh boy!
This week, not to play him, but I figure he's going to come back at least to somebody's team within the next couple of weeks. But I don't know for sure. I wanted to get you guys' take on what would you do with Cam Newton. So next week, if he comes back next week, would you play him? Because I have Dak and Lamar in most of my teams. I'm going to need, and I think I picked up Cam in a lot of those teams thinking he might come back, but I might also drop him. I don't know. You guys have any takes on Cam Newton?
Jared, do you want to start with that one?
No way do I play Cam Newton at San Francisco. No chance whatsoever. I would find somebody else off. I mean, but he's at San Francisco, at home against Tennessee, at Green Bay, at home against Atlanta, at New Orleans. I mean, 3 of those 5 games after he comes back would be games that I would not even consider starting him. So
maybe spike drop him then.
Spike drop him. I don't remember that term.
I understand that reference.
You drop him so hard, you're like spiking him.
Oh.
Yeah, I might rather have my opponents have him then, huh? It might be better to drop him.
That's a thing sometimes where I'm like, there'll be a guy that somebody picks up to play against me, and I'm like, I'm good with that. Yeah, go right ahead. You want to roll the dice on him? Sure.
See, here's my big thing with Cam Newton is that I saw this. I was listening to Colin Cowherd a couple of days back. There are 4 undefeated quarterbacks in the NFL right now. You've got Brady, you've got Garoppolo, you've got Teddy Bridgewater, and you've got Kyle Allen, who hasn't lost yet. So I'm not confident in Carolina even playing Newton even when he comes back, because this is kind of the issue of, who's got the hot hand?
Mm-hmm.
Allen hasn't lost.
Yeah, I'm
not confident that the Panthers are going to start Newton, and even if he does, I still wouldn't play him.
They haven't won because of Kyle Allen, though. They've won because of CMC. I don't think the coaches are looking at Kyle Allen thinking, thank goodness we had Kyle Allen to hold our team together.
Yeah, but
he's done okay.
Take the guy who's leading you to victories, though. Like Newton, especially with his injury-prone history, coming in and out every couple weeks, and Kyle Allen's he's just been holding down the fort. Maybe he hasn't been the one lifting the team on his back, but still, he's the one who's been going in there every week and playing fine. He's been doing at work.
Basically he's doing his job as a backup quarterback. Good job.
I think the way somebody put it was like the situation's probably going to work itself out, because when they come back, they've got San Francisco, and we saw what they did to Baker Mayfield. That's a tough defense for a quarterback to do anything against. So I think if they just destroy Kyle Allen, then that's going to give the Panthers are going to say, look, okay, he's a guy. He's probably a better guy to beat bad teams with, because he can make throws when you need it, and he's not going to beat you. But we've got to just roll the dice on Cam, getting back to some of his past form if we're going to beat these really good teams, or they beat the 49ers or play well enough against them that they barely lose or something, and then they probably say, all right, we're gonna keep rolling with them and see where it goes. But I don't think Cam starts against San Francisco. I think they'll probably go with Allen to see like how that works out, and then I think that will kind of justify their decision going forward.
That makes a lot of sense. All right, guys, you guys are awesome. I will see you on the waiver wire episode on Tuesday.
Yes,
May you guys have a wonderful week.
You as well.
May you defeat your opponents unless they are me.
I was about to say the same thing. I'm playing you in a league.
Let's see. We don't play again until week, I think 9 or 10. 9 or 10 or 10. Yeah, because there's nine opponents in a league, and so Judah and I played in week 1, and so we'll play again in week 10.
Who won that one?
I won.
See, I've got this guy this week, so I got something to prove. Especially, I'm trying to make a playoff run. I'm 4-2. I think he's 1-5 in that.
You're in good shape.
You have to play me.
Yeah, should be interesting. All right, bye, Judah. Man, we got a couple questions in the chat. Ryan in, we'll get Thomas H. Don't worry, we'll get to yours. Ryan in, last question for him. Start Josh Allen over Aaron Rodgers.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, don't even have to think about that. I would do it. I would do it even if Aaron had his weapons. But it would be close probably. But he's probably not. He's not going to have Devontae Adams. Allison, I think. MVS is out. I mean, literally, I think his top 3 receivers are going to be out. And the Raiders are not terrible. So it's an easy Josh Allen for me. I mean, I think Allen's a top 5 QB play this week.
Wow. Especially, I mean, he's playing Miami.
He's playing, that's entirely
matchup.
Yeah. Josh Allen's got a great short-term schedule of Miami, Philly, Washington, I think maybe Cleveland or somebody's mixed in there, and then Miami again. Just like 4 out of 5 matchups is he's a guy that you can roll out with confidence there.
Yeah, and I definitely am not feeling with the Packers. I don't feel like rolling out Jake Kumaro and Darius Shepard against the Raiders.
Lazard was the big guy.
Yes.
Alan Lazard.
Yes, Lazard.
He actually played pretty well. I mean, he's a big guy, but and he might, that's a guy that if you need somebody to stream and you're desperate, you could plug him in. But you don't know like week to week like what these guys are going to give you. So I don't want any part of the Packers passing game this week.
Yeah. Thomas H., I apologize for the long wait. You've had 2 questions. If I can scroll up to find it, there we are. So for the Jets this week, does Darnold open the field to give Le'Veon room to run, or do the Pats shut down at linebacker? Oh wait, no, Le'Veon Bell. Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah. I think he makes it a little bit better for Le'Veon. I mean, Le'Veon was because of his pass catching ability, like even in that game at New England, he had 8.3 points, and which, I mean, I know like 8.3 points sounds terrible for Le'Veon Bell, but to be playing with the 3rd string quarterback in New England, like that's actually not
pretty good,
terrible, because he was still catching passes. I think he can still get you, so I think he gets you double-digit points. I think maybe he gets you a dozen points. It's possible he could get you a touchdown, because the Pats defense, as good as they are, they haven't played a lot of, I'm not sure if they played any good teams really, I've got to start Le'Veon in one league, and I feel okay about it. He's not going to go off against them, but I think the fact that they're at home, the fact that Darnold's back, I think Le'Veon can be like an RB2 for you this week.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were saying before. Like, if it's Hopkins, you got to start him. I feel like if it's Le'Veon, you got to start him, especially since Darnold's back. Like
Yeah.
sitting him would do something to me mentally. I can't do that.
I think I sat him against at New England, but again,
Yeah.
no Sam Darnold and
Right.
everything else. So running backs, if it's a really bad matchup, I'm a little bit more likely to sit them than receivers. Because I mean, a receiver may only have to beat one guy. A receiver may only have to beat a good cornerback, and that guy could fall down or something like that.
That's
But
the truth.
if a running back's got to go up against a talented like 8-man front, then they've got to beat 8 guys, So, I feel okay about Le'Veon because you probably don't have a better option. And I think he'll do better than what he did in New England. But don't expect like a blowout performance.
Yeah. Ryan N just put in his claim for more using his number 2 waiver he's been saving for 3 weeks.
Oh wow!
Hopefully it'll be worth it. I think you'll be all right. I think it'll be worth it.
Yeah, I mean the thing I would say about waiver priorities is and this is always like the tough thing with answering fantasy questions and why I think like just like tweeting questions to the so-called experts or whatever is kind of dangerous too, is because a lot of it really depends on your situation. Like if you've got a ton of good receivers and your team is in good shape, then maybe it's better for you to hold on to that waiver priority. Like I've got a couple of leagues where I've got a really good record. I feel like my roster's pretty solid, and I'm going to hold on to it and wait and see, like if a running back goes down and then his backup might be a league winner. I mean, if Dalvin Cook goes down and Madison's out there, I mean that could win a league for you. Or if Barkley goes down again and Gallman's out there, or Zeke and Pollard or something like that. So but if you're 3-3 or 4-2 and your receiving core is not that great, if you need a guy that can be like a number 3 receiver for you, then it's probably worth it. But it's tough to answer questions kind of in a bubble like that without really knowing the circumstances. So that's just I guess some of the like qualifying advice I would give on that.
Yeah, it's so weird for me. I almost never really think about waivers that much. For the most part, I just throw caution to the wind and say I'm either going to get the guy or I'm not going to get the guy. Because even on teams that I'm winning on, typically I have someone who hasn't been performing, like Ronald Jones or something like that, and there's someone better on the waiver wire. Like I'm 5-1 in one league, and I got Cortland Sutton last week somehow because everyone had completely passed over him.
Wow.
And that's the team where I got away with highway robbery in the draft. And so I just picked him up to stash him. And so at that point, I'm just like, well, if no one else goes for him, I'll get him or not. Then you put in 6 waiver claims, all to drop Corey Davis after week 2.
Yeah.
Not that I've had experience with that.
I pretty well like throw caution to the wind early on in the season. But as it gets a little farther along, I just recommend like being a little more sort of intentional and like looking to see like, okay, what's the situation? But I'm kind of like you up until through the first 5 weeks or 6 weeks or something like that. I'm just like, all right, is this a good player that can help my roster? I'm right.
Ryan N says his starters are great, but his bench is pretty rough. His bench flex options are Sutton, Landry, T. Williams, AP, and Rojo. Might flip Sutton and Moore for better running back depth.
Yeah, I mean that's you can definitely justify picking up Moore for that because Sutton's about really the only guy on there that I would want to have to rely on.
Same here.
Landry, you never know when he's going to give you a good week. Williams' foot's hurt, and I don't know what the season outlook looks for like for him. The short term, he's not playing. AP, I don't think you're going to be able to start AP again this season unless Geis goes down, and even then, I'd have to really look at his schedule to see is there something resembling a Miami matchup. So we've already talked about Rojo. So I think you're justified in using that number 2 waiver priority on Moore, but at the same time, 2 or 3 weeks from now, when if a big time running back goes down, you're going to be like, oh man, I should have held on to that. So it's kind of but maybe they won't. So, you just have to kind of do what you think's best there.
Yeah, he's locked in with Barkley, Fournette, Connor, Evans, and Edelman. Yeah,
oh my gosh, yeah,
that's a nice roster.
That is a good roster. You're gonna, and those guys have generally, well, outside of maybe Connor that's got Buffalo in week 15. Those guys have pretty good playoff matchups. That's you're in good shape there with your starters.
Yeah, Thomas H, thank you for your incredible patience, and you just had to give me a Bears question. Really? Why would you do this to me? Trubisky's back. Kamara's out. You see a final score of 9-6, unless Khalil Mack plays the entire game and scores a touchdown. What do you think about this matchup, Jared?
Yeah, I think that's actually probably pretty accurate. I think it's going to be really similar to what happened in Jacksonville last week. It was 13-6, I think, last week. It was, and the Jaguars defense is not as good as Chicago's. And the Jaguars were, putting out to me, Minshew's, just a better quarterback than whatever Chicago is going to throw out there. So I could easily see it being 9-6, 6-3. It could be pretty bad. Always a chance that somebody breaks a big play or gets a touchdown. Right. But yeah, I think this is pretty ugly. Like, a lot of people are saying plug Latavius Murray in, and if you've got Kamara and he's your handcuff to him, then maybe you have to do that. But I didn't love Alvin Kamara for that matchup, let alone Murray, who's much more of a slower plodding running back. I would, if it was me, I would find I would look for some other option. I think you're going to get a good day, probably still out of Thomas. Like Michael Thomas could still put up his usual numbers, but otherwise, I'm just trying to think like who would I want to start in that matchups, and other than the defenses, just nobody there.
I don't want to start, and I know Allen Robinson's been like the one relatively consistent player on Chicago's offense, but he's facing Marshawn Lattimore. And I don't want to go against that. And even though Thomas is like probably, in my opinion, going to be the most consistent person, I wouldn't start Latavius Murray against the Bears. I know a lot of people, even though they say that he should, I know that Akeem Hicks is gone on IR, but you still got to go through Khalil Mack and Roquan Smith and everybody else. And even Thomas makes me a little bit nervous because he's going to get Kyle Fuller all day. So I would only say Thomas is the only true start in this entire week, pretty much in that game. Unless you're hurting and your bench is on bye and you need Latavius Murray, who could do all right. Like if he gets one goal line touchdown or something, that's all he needs. That's the 6 points. But I don't know.
I think even with that, like he could still end up with like a 8.5 game, even if he gets a touchdown, because he might not have more than 25 yards. So
true.
That's just a situation to avoid for me. I think 9-6 is honestly not out of the question there.
We'll watch the game actually be 9-6, and he's predicted the Redskins head coach and now the Bears. Something's going on here. Right. Thomas H is like me and doesn't trust Robert Woods consistently, but he's against the Falcons defense. That's pretty tempting. Even though Robert Woods' only points came off a rushing touchdown last week. He's playing the Falcons defense. What do you think, Jared?
I've kind of got that same sort of thought in my one league, but I'm still. Let's see. I don't think I've got him actually in that league. I think I've still got him on my bench. It's one of those situations where, just being a Rams receiver, like the fact that he plays for the Rams is the only reason that I haven't dropped him. Because he's put up double-digit points once since week 1. He had that big game against Tampa, which everybody has a big game against Tampa. And other than that Tampa game, 4 out of the last 5 games, he has not hit 50 yards, and he has no receiving touchdowns this season.
That is brutal.
No receiving touchdowns. Like he's just a huge disappointment, because people thought, like, I mean, he was really probably the most consistent Rams receiver last year.
Oh,
and
especially after Cup went down too.
Yeah, right. Well, and he kind of took over some of that role. They put him kind of in the slot some. But even, before that, like, he was the one getting the most targets, even though when Cup was in there, he was doing a little bit more with them.
Right.
But they've just gone away from him. So if you again, it depends on what you've got there. If you have a dice roll play that you need to make, then a Rams player is about as good of a dice roll play as you could make, other than a Chiefs player when Mahomes was in there. So so if you don't have if you've got guys on bye, if you have a really bad matchup with a player or something like that, I think he's worth a dice roll there. But I guess that's maybe the best thing I can say about him, is that he's as good of a dice roll as you can have. But I mean, nothing to this point really gives you much confidence that he's going to have, more than like 7.5 points. So.
Yeah. See, this is the game where I think Cooper Kupp's going to explode for 35 points. I think this is going to be his main game, because especially, I mean, the Falcons probably have one, I would say, solid corner in
Trufant.
Thank you, Desmond Trufant. Yeah, that's probably their one solid corner. And I don't even know who he's going to be on, because if you're the Falcons, you're like, they've got 50 different players that we have to cover. Who are we gonna go after? So I think you have to play Woods almost like as a flex out of necessity, because it's like the matchup is so good you can't pass it up. Yeah. But I wouldn't be expecting like 20 points out of him this week.
Yeah.
Oh boy, that is for all the questions we got so far. Ryan in 12. The league with his ridiculous starting lineup is a 12-man league with a bunch of trades. Yeah. That would explain it.
Yeah.
There you go. So Jared, you have not given any stardom or sit-ems this week. Do you have anyone?
Yeah. Some of these are just kind of obvious guys based on the matchup, but I'm starting a lot of Buffalo Bills this week. Josh Allen, John Brown, and Frank Gore.
I'm happy I already made a banner for this.
Oh, no. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Time to pay the bills. That's right. Josh Allen, I mean, again, it's Miami. Yeah. Just everybody's going to score points against them. And so, I guess just ranking those in order, I think, Allen just is the safest play of all, I think. And then probably Gore after that to me. And I think maybe the interesting thing from this is that, there seems to be, some debate over like Singletary or Gore.
Right.
And a lot of what I've seen is like, oh, Singletary is the guy, and Gore is going to be the number 2. I keep like looking to see if there's something that I'm missing,
right,
about that. But I'm like, no, like in even the first 2 games where Singletary was in there, he was really kind of the number sort of 2, if not 3 guy behind Gore, and then sort of Yeldon and some passing downs and stuff like that.
Yeah,
and he was putting up big numbers based off of a limited number of plays. And so he's coming off of injury. It's his first week back. And, he's just not a huge guy. He's 5'7". Now he's 200 pounds. And so he's got some, some solid, weight on that, lack of height. So it's not like he's a thin guy. But it's hard for me to believe that they're just going to immediately turn to him when they didn't in the first 2 games, when it was Gore getting the the bulk of the carries in those, and when he's coming off injury. I think the only way that might happen is if they really get out to a blowout lead, and then just kind of turn it over to him, which is possible. But I mean, even like Buffalo's offense, I'm not sure, it's not going to be like a Patriots game. It's not, they're not going to be the same as like the Patriots playing the Dolphins, where, they throw on 49 points in the first half or something, and then they can, like a college game or something. So, So that would be my only thing is like, I would be cautious about Singletary. I think he can still have a good game, but the people that are thinking like he's going to come in and be the number one guy, I don't know where that's coming from.
No, me neither. I picked up Singletary, I think, after week 2 in a couple leagues, especially since Judah Buddha was so high on him. And I was like, well, I mean, he's making the most out of the carries he's getting, and then he's been injured for weeks. And at this point, Gore has just completely taken over so far in running back position. I totally agree with you. I don't know why people are still saying Singletary is going to be number 1. Yeah. I don't understand it. And honestly, I mean, you just might want to take Frank Gore because you could just say, my running back has the 4th most yards in NFL history. So take that.
Well, I think it is really interesting to see like how well, Gore has done this year. And I'm looking to see where he ranks in the point standings for running backs, because like out of everyone this year, it's kind of like who would be the least likely to have any kind of meaningful impact this year. And you would have to, you would have probably said, Frank Gore. And right. So, I mean, but he's had, because it looked like, you started out the year with like McCoy in Buffalo, you had Singletary, and, so Frank Gore, he's only, part of his numbers are actually a little bit lower than,
right,
because they've had their bye week already.
Yeah.
But he's had 14, apart from the opening game where they didn't play well against the Jets, for his last 4 games, he's had at least 14 carries. He's had at least 60 yards, and he's had, in 2 out of the 4, he's had 15 plus points, So, I mean, just you never, that's the funny thing about fantasy is, you're like, oh, who am I going to draft and who am I going to get? And, who's the exciting guy? And, ageless wonder Frank Gore, now could legitimately be, I mean, he's already been, pretty good.
Yeah.
And now his, like we said, his schedule is Miami, of course, then Philadelphia. You don't want to play him against Philadelphia, but then Washington, Cleveland, Miami. So 3 out of the next 5 games. He's a very valid flex play. And I have him in, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 9 of my 17 leagues. I have him in more than half my leagues. So I'm a believer in Gore.
Same here. I think the crazy thing is that if you look at the fact, like, okay, so he hasn't gotten that many yards, even with the bye week, but he's still averaging almost 4.5 yards a carry.
Yeah.
Like, the dude is a living tank, for crying out loud.
Yeah. Oh, so the best, let's see if I can find this here. It's the best stat about him. And this just,
oh boy,
this just blew my mind. Crap. What did I do with it now? Got to go back to a league where I have him here. So this is on Yahoo's little player notes here.
Oh yes.
And most of the time those are meaningless, but I read this one this morning. It says Frank Gore has averaged 3.3 yards after contact since week 3 of 2019, second best of 34 qualified running backs.
Wow.
The league average is 1.8. It's this old man is averaging the second best yards after contact over the past month or so.
Oh my goodness. That is insane.
Yeah.
The ageless wonder that is Frank Gore.
Yep. So what about you? Any what are your stardoms?
Oh boy. Okay. This week I honestly think that I'm going a lot of Cardinals this week.
Okay.
I'm going a lot of Cardinals this week. I have Kyler Murray in a couple leagues because I'm feeling Murray this week. I'm trying to think like Matt Ryan or something in a couple leagues, and he's playing the Giants. I think David Johnson is going to be okay. I think he's going to be clear. And I know Fitzgerald hasn't been performing that great, and his statistics have slowly been trending down. But I think this is going to be the week that they're going to do it. The Giants defense is not scary. Alec Ogletree is probably the only person in there who's mildly fearsome, and one linebacker I don't think is going to make all that much of a difference. I'm playing pretty much all my Cardinals this week. And if Christian Kirk for some reason is 100% healthy for some reason and he takes a miracle pill and he's fine on Sunday morning, I'm playing him too. What do you think, Jared?
No, I think both sides of that matchup are pretty appealing.
Yeah.
The Cardinals are terrible against tight ends. So, if you've got Evan Ingram, you're probably, I hope you're starting him anyway. If you've got Saquon Barkley, you're definitely starting him.
Yeah.
But I think even if you need like a desperation quarterback play, Daniel Jones could give you a little something. I don't love him this week. The Cardinals defense is not great, but it's kind of weird, like how some of their matchups break down.
Yeah.
So I like some of Jones's matchups later in the year a little bit better, but they are at home, and maybe he could give you something. Depending on, I think if Shepard's still out, then Golden Tate makes again another pretty good fantasy play.
Who put up 22 points on the Patriots defense, for crying out loud?
Yeah, he had that one big play, and so he kind of got saved by that. But yeah, I think it's hard to go. I think the interesting thing with that Cardinals Giants matchup is whether or not David Johnson's going to play. Yeah, because he's got, he had the back issue that we weren't sure about him last week, and then now he's got an ankle issue. And Cliff Kingsbury, said he's going to be a game time decision. Said that if the game had been Friday, he would not have been ready to go. So, so that's interesting. I think that makes it like a true, 50-50 game time call. So, so if you've got David Johnson, hopefully you've got Chase Edmonds handcuffed to him, because I think we've already seen that, Johnson is kind of injury prone enough that you need to have him in there. And, Edmonds is having games where he's like scoring almost as many points as Johnson on limited touches. So, so Edmonds is a guy that, again, he's kind of like an Alexander Madison or a Wayne Gallman or somebody like that, where, if Johnson went down and he's not around for the fantasy playoffs in week 15 or 16, then, Chase Edmonds could be a league winner for you or something.
Yeah. That makes me numb. As you're speaking, I'm pretty much putting in a claim for Chase Edmonds right now, because I have David Johnson in one.
Oh,
league.
Yeah.
But I'm getting a trade for Tevin Coleman. Goes through Sunday morning. So
that's good. I like Coleman rest of the season. Like going into the season, I don't think I drafted him anywhere.
Yeah.
The San Francisco running back situation was a mess.
Yeah.
It was him. It was Breida. It was what's the guy that they brought
Jerick
over?
McKinnon.
Jerick McKinnon. Yeah. No idea how that was going to work out. And then Coleman got hurt, and it was a mess. Now we've had an opportunity to see, though, when he came back, what his role is going to be. How effective San Francisco is at running the ball. And Coleman, again, if your team is doing well, and you're looking ahead to the playoffs a little bit, Coleman gets the Falcons in week 15. And the Falcons are just, it's going to be around Christmas time, and they're going to be handing out fantasy points to everybody. So, I like the 49ers running game for that, at least that first round of the playoffs there.
What's his name? Ryan N says that he's a Bills fan now because he'll be rolling with Allen and the Bills D for the next 5 weeks.
Yeah, I think,
my goodness.
I think you're good. I think the next. Again, they're each one of them, I think, has a matchup in there that it's a little bit shaky on. Yeah. Josh Allen, I think maybe the game that's at Cleveland. I would be a little bit hesitant to start him in that one.
I wouldn't.
Well, the thing about it is if Cleveland's corners are healthy.
That's a good point.
So they've been if they're not, then I would feel better about that.
Yeah.
But road game, and if those corners are healthy, then that could be a little bit shaky. But four out of those five, I would feel good about. And the same way with the Bills defense, Philadelphia next week, it's not the best matchup, but
Right.
but it's
Still
at
play
home, right? It's at home, and so it's still like a playable thing. So I think you're in good shape. I've got leagues where I'm gonna be doing the same thing. So
yeah. Honestly, and Cleveland, honestly, especially for the Bills D, doesn't scare me that much
the
because their
Bills
defense
D,
is
no.
solid.
Right.
And after seeing what San Francisco did to them, no way. Ugh.
Yeah, that matchup for the Bills defense could be really great. I mean, if Baker Mayfield keeps playing, the way he's been playing, it's just, turnover city.
Yeah, well, I mean, they're competing with Tampa for that, but it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
Thomas H says that since Judah Buddha advised streaming Jacoby Brissett on Tuesday, he streamed Minshew instead. The deliberate rejection. Wow. Jared, what do you think of his decision? The Colts fan, what do you think?
I'm now getting choked up from laughing. That's a tough one because I don't have tremendous faith in either one of those guys. I know Minshew has done well. Jacoby has had some games where he's done well, but I think week to week, I do feel a little bit better about Minshew.
Yeah.
The Jaguars are just, I think a lot of it is just basically the fact that the Jaguars are less afraid to let him throw the ball. The Colts have really protected Jacoby. If they don't think they have to throw the ball, they're not going to throw the ball. And he's had two, and the problem is too, is like the two games where he's been successful are somewhat misleading because he was successful against the Falcons, and the Falcons weren't just bad in that game.
Yeah.
They were bad. They were bad for the Falcons. Like they were, it was low standards by the Falcons.
That was embarrassing, honestly.
Sorry,
Thomas H. By the way, if you're listening,
Oh, it's fine. It's fine.
Like
that's true. Yeah. He probably knows. He probably knows how it is then. Because I don't think there's a lot of Falcons fans left out there that are like, hey, don't talk bad about that team. I think Falcons fans are generally pretty frustrated at this point. But I mean, there was just no one like Jacoby was throwing to guys that there was no defender within like eight yards of him, And so his numbers looked really good from that game, but you're not going to get that often. And same, with the Raiders game, they had to play catch up, and he had, he had like a big late touchdown pass that made his numbers look better. So I'm just not, unless it's a really good matchup, I'm just not a huge believer in what Jacoby's going to do. A lot of it is just based on the Colts, wanting to play good defense and play the running game and just not have to make him throw. Whereas the Jaguars are just like, sure. We've got this, guy who's become this like sensation, and I think the Jaguars, their owner, Shad Khan, is almost looking to provide entertainment more than win football games. And so I think they're more willing to let him cut it loose. So I don't love either one of these guys this weekend, but you might be a little bit safer with Minshew.
Yeah, especially, I think Brissett later down the line is going to be a better play because he gets the golden matchup against Miami in a few weeks. But it's the Bengals. Honestly, if we're talking about worst team in the league, Washington beat Miami, so we can get them out of the conversation. But the Bengals are really bad too. They are really, really bad.
Fourth most have given up the fourth most points to quarterbacks. So, it's hard to turn down, Minshew in that matchup or anybody else in that matchup.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting week because there's a lot of streaming quarterbacks that have great matchups this week. Brissett technically has a good matchup. Minshew's got a good matchup. Technically, Daniel Jones has a good matchup. If Josh Allen's still somewhere, he's got a good matchup. It's almost like you can just hover over 4 people and click the button, and that's who you're going to get, even though I think Josh Allen is the best one.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's got a bunch. Judah Buddha had this earlier, saying that it's Chark week. What do you think, Jared? Is that true?
Well, we kind of just we kind of just I think I just made that as like an offhand joke or something like that, and so he jumped on that. I don't think there's nothing about this week that makes Chark especially appealing. Like interestingly enough, like Cincinnati hasn't been that terrible against wide receivers, so I don't think like I said, that was just sort of a joke that he kind of ran with. Yeah. But so as good as Chark has been, I think he could, have another one of those big games, but there's nothing like making me think that he's going to, but I mean, I think at this point, he's just a good enough play that you've probably got him in as your wide receiver 2 or flex.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, see, here's the interesting thing. I'm hearing that the Bengals, these are the things that I always check to make sure it's actually pretty viable, because I hear teams like, oh, this terrible team is for some reason great against the run or great against the pass. And that's the stuff that I absolutely have to check, because I'm like, well, is that actually true?
Yeah.
And the Bengals track record, I mean, it's okay. I mean, they didn't give up any touchdowns to the Cardinals or anything, but then on the same token, they gave up 4 touchdowns to Jimmy Garoppolo and the 49ers. So I think it's almost like you could go to one of two extremes. It's either going to be this week, it's either going to be Fournette has 7 touchdowns because they just gave up 150 rushing yards to Lamar Jackson, and then still gave up 100 yards to Mark Ingram, or they're going to throw for 7 touchdowns. It's going to be one of the two.
Well, and I mean, again, like what you always say about like looking to see like who they've played. Right. So the Bengals have played the Seahawks in week 1, and Russell Wilson never gets off to a good start. Yeah. It always takes him a game or two before he really gets rolling, and then everybody drops him, and then like he's on waiver wires, and then people pick him up. And then San Francisco, they got blown out by them. They were at Buffalo. Josh Allen is, again, we're advocating playing him because of these matchups, but he's not like a stud thrower. At Pittsburgh, that was Mason Rudolph's first full start. They weren't really letting him throw the ball. Arizona, we've talked about how that team is like good at racking up a lot of yards, but then once they get in the red zone, they can't finish. And then, at Baltimore last week, and Lamar Jackson's passing numbers have kind of come back to earth after, getting to play the Dolphins early on. So, I mean, part of it is just like with the passing game. I think maybe like who they've played is kind of contributing to some of that too. So.
Thomas H asks us, C-Mac is such a beast this year. Maybe he still scores points even when Carolina's on the bye.
I think if anybody could, like, I mean, he seems like one of those guys that like, if they talk about how he doesn't want to come off the field for any play. I think if there was some sort of rule in football, and maybe this needs to be a rule. Actually, maybe this needs to be a rule, because as I just thought of it, now it's sounding really interesting to me. What if when a team's on a bye, they could rent out players and get like a draft pick or some sort of compensation? And I think Christian McCaffrey would be that type of guy, because he never wants to come off the field. And so I could see him just gladly, signing up to go, play for the Colts or something, and get, 20 carries or something, so maybe that's something, the NFL wants to talk about like, adding a 17th game or something like that. No, NFL, you need to think about this. Think about rent a players. And, and there would have to like, maybe the rule is you can't do it within your conference. Maybe it's got to be that's a good point. Or not in your division. That would make it even more interesting, because teams could intentionally rent out the player to a team that was playing one of their rivals.
Yes.
That would make things so much more interesting. That's what we need to do. Don't add in a 17th game. Just allow your players to play a 17th game in their bye week.
Yes, that is so genius, because I can already think of so many twisted strategies to go through this.
Just imagine what Belichick would do with that,
Oh, that would be brutal. Hey, we have 7 running backs that can help you out this week. Take your pick. I'll just take like a 6th-round draft pick off your hands this week.
Right. Or maybe Belichick rents himself out. Maybe you can do it with a coach. Maybe he goes in to coach against one of his rivals, and like how much of an ego hit. And think about all the drama. Like this is really like just going all kinds of places in my mind as the more I think about this. Think about all the drama that would create, because it would upset your team's player at that position, because they're going to they're going to get their feelings hurt because you feel like you need to bring in this person to help you. So yeah, I think it would just be a really interesting thing, and it would be guaranteed to go better than this new reviewing pass interference thing.
Oh, much better.
Because that's gone nowhere. So hey, that's the floor. We know we're going to come in above that. So why not? So we need to I need to send this link to the competition committee.
Oh yes, absolutely. The NFLPA, send it in at their next meeting.
Yeah.
See, this is what we should have done. When Judah Buddha went to Washington, he should have hired himself out to all the teams around the NFL.
Right.
That would be, oh my goodness, that's the most genius idea I have ever heard in my life. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be fun. That's gonna be fun. Oh boy. So unfortunately, C-Mac I don't think is gonna score that many points unless for some reason the Tar Heels are gonna hire him out for the weekend and pretend like, no, he's so small, he's 22. He was redshirted in his freshman year, and they're gonna beat Virginia Tech tonight or something like that with Christian McCaffrey rushing for 200 yards. I don't think he's going to do much.
That would be amazing. That would be so brutal. Yeah.
Oh yeah. See, now we just need to send you to the next NFL coaches meeting as the the fans advocate or something. The advocate for NFL fans or something.
I feel like I don't know, just like watching Jerry Jones's interviews and press conferences, I feel like I could get him, I feel like he would be all for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think he would, Pete Carroll, get some of these free spirit, just high energy guys that like big new ideas, and I think we could get it rolling.
Yeah, I could see the NFC West just going all in on this, and Pete Carroll and Pete Carroll and Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay just going all out and just trying to just mess each other up and just going to other teams, and you'll see Sean McVay in Atlanta and Kyle Shanahan's over in I don't even know with the Chargers or something, just because they've got a matchup. I could see them just messing each other up for weeks. I could see that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that'd be hilarious. Just create a pact. Look, we're not going to coach our own teams at all this year. Whoever's interim head coach does the best goes to the playoffs. That's how it's going to work in the NFC West. This was how the West was won.
That'd be hilarious.
Oh boy, I don't really see that many other questions. So do you have any other stardom situms you got for us?
I think I kind of mentioned before, the Chargers run defense has just been brutal. So Derrick Henry, I've got Derrick Henry in a couple of leagues. I feel good about him. He hasn't been, he hasn't put up the kind of numbers. I mean, he was never going to put up the kind of numbers that he, put up towards the end of the year last year. So he's been he's been very solid. Last week was his first bad week. But prior to that, he was just good for 11 plus points a game. He had gotten a touchdown in 4 of his first 5 games. And but the next 3 of the next 4 games, Henry's got the Chargers, the Bucks, the Panthers, and the Chiefs. And so, I mean, 3 of those 4, he could just feast.
Brutal.
So Derrick Henry's a guy that I feel good about this week. I think we kind of touched on already all the Bills and the Giants and Cardinals. I'm gonna take, if you have anybody else you want to give,
keep going. Keep going.
Well, I'm gonna give I'm just kind of giving one little pass here to my last little pass to my rosters to see is there anybody else that I really feel good about. So if you have anybody else in the meantime, I'll see if I've got any last ones.
See, that's kind of funny because I was coming up with questions for you guys, and so I didn't have as many start-him sit-ems for myself either. But but it's so crazy because I keep going to the team where I'm absolutely stacked, and I probably should look at the team where I'm not stacked. I know that a lot of people have had questions about him, but I like Marlon Mack this week a lot against the Texans.
Okay.
Even though he's injury prone, I think that he's going to do extremely well this week. I think he's going to get at least 15 points, I think, this week. That's my bold prediction for the day. Okay. I'm loving this matchup for him.
Yeah, it's funny. I was actually thinking about bringing him up. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to get from him this week. So I think you may be, I think you could be right on that, but I'm just not
confident about it.
I'm not super confident. I've got some leagues where I've got to choose between him and Gore actually. And I'm not really sure how I'm going to go on that because man, it's just hard to bench a starter playing the Dolphins,
Oh yeah.
So I might lean that way. Another guy I like this week a lot is Michael Gallup. They get that Eagles secondary that Stephon Diggs destroyed last week. Amari Cooper, like right now, the last thing I saw is that it looks like he's going to play.
Yeah.
Is he going to make it through the game? Is he going to be is he at 75%? I don't know. So I think Gallup with that secondary being so beatable, I would expect a lot of the balls to go his way. Again, it's kind of a thing where they're, just like we said last week with the Vikings, the run defense for Philadelphia is really good, but the pass defense is bad.
It's horrible.
So I guess if you've got Amari, you're probably, it's a Sunday night game. That the tough thing is, I'm fortunate. I've got Amari, I think, in 2 leagues, and in one of them I have Gallup. And so I can, I'm probably just going to go with Gallup regardless.
Yeah.
If for some reason they're like, it's game time and Amari's 100%, maybe I would start him over him. But with Amari, it's a tough situation because he aggravated an injury early last week and had to leave the game. With that being a Sunday night game, if you've got another option, like for me, I've got Tevin Coleman, that I'm probably going to flex in for Amari because Coleman's got the Redskins, and I don't really want it to come down to that Sunday night in the league where I don't also have Gallup. So I say for sure start up Gallup and probably sit Amari unless you happen to have both and you've just got one spot that that you're kind of waiting to see on.
Yeah, see, my thing is that I need to start either Cooper or John Brown. So who do you think you would go with?
I would go John Brown. Because obviously, if Amari was healthy, that would be, I think, a no-brainer for me, to go with him. If it was a Sunday afternoon game, then you could wait and see.
Yeah.
But when, if you don't have, I don't know what third option, unless you've got like Alshon, also on your bench or something, then, it's kind of hard to justify sitting Brown for a day game and just crossing your fingers that A, Amari plays period. And, B, he doesn't leave early with an injury, and C, that even if he does stay in, that he's healthy and effective, and that it doesn't mostly go to Gallup. So, so that's a tough one. I mean, it does create the potential for you to be kicking yourself later, like, oh man, I should have put him in. But when Brown's going against the Dolphins, I think that there is a safe enough, there's a high floor and a high ceiling to kind of give you room to justify starting him over just gambling on Amari Sunday night.
Yeah, see, this is a league where we have 3 wide receivers, 2 running backs, and then a flex spot after that. So it's kind of crazy. So out of necessity, I'm going to need to start either Brown or Cooper. And what I probably should have done was gone Brown, because I'm actually in a trade for Cooper that goes through Sunday morning. And so what I probably should have done was have gone Brown to start and then put Cooper in my flex. But, and Judah Boot, I have a bone to pick with you. I started Shady McCoy instead in my flex spot, who got me 7.6, which, I mean, beat his projection, but it wasn't anything.
Well, and and another thing I'll say for John Brown is tied to a guy that I would say is a sit-em this week, and that's well, actually, he's probably going to be a sit-em for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's Terry McLaurin, who I've got on. Let's see, I've got him on 2 or 3 teams. I've got him on 3, and I like him. He's been really consistent for a bad Washington team that's had a quarterback. Maybe not carousel is the right word, but
injury rotation,
a seesaw at least. A quarterback seesaw. But McLaurin's got the 49ers this week, the Vikings next week, and the Bills the week after that. So I don't really like him in any of those. But you look at what he did last week. He had 24 points at the Dolphins, 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So, hey, that just one more reason, like, fire up John Brown,
Yeah, very true. Okay, thanks for that also, because I'm going to need that. So I actually have a question for you as well, because I have this guy in a couple leagues. Cincinnati's a mess, and I don't know if the return of AJ Green is going to help that at all or not. But do the Bengals need to start mixing it up? Is Joe Mixon ever going to be consistent? What do you think?
No.
Ouch.
No, I don't think so. I think I mentioned it earlier in the podcast. Like, I traded him, Damian Williams, and this was prior to the Thursday night game. I don't know if I could have pawned Damian Williams off on anyone after that, but so I traded him, Damian Williams, and Ridley for DeAndre Hopkins. Now, Hopkins is like a 4-point upgrade over Ridley to this point in the season. But like, so that trade, but one, I think Hopkins is due for some progression. I'm not going to say positive regression. I don't care if that is a statistical term. I'm not saying that.
It is a term. It's so weird. It means going closer to the average, which for Hopkins is a bad thing.
Yeah. So I think Hopkins is going to get, he's going to get more touchdowns. He's going to have more bigger games. He's had sort of this string of playing some tough cornerbacks. And so I think, he is going to be, preferable to Ridley, but, part of it was just kind of tied to the fact that, like, that's how little confidence I have in Mixon and Damian Williams. And Damian Williams, it's for sure, justified. I mean, he's just not even getting touches. With Mixon, he is at least getting the touches. But, I mean, he's had 2 out of 6 games where he's okay. Let me put it this way instead. In half of his games, he has fewer than 5 points. Half of his games, he has fewer than 5 points. He's topped 62 yards once. He has no rushing touchdowns. Maybe I think he's had a receiving touchdown or so. But, he just doesn't. The only thing, I'll say the only, like, sort of saving grace for Mixon is that if you if you keep him on your roster and you make
Mhm.
the fantasy championship, they've got Miami that week.
Yeah.
But in the semifinals, you're probably not playing him because they've got the Patriots. So,
Mhm.
so that would be my one thing. If you've got a super deep, talented roster,
Yeah.
and you've got Mixon on there, and you want to keep him around for thinking you're going to make the fantasy championship or something. Sure,
Mhm.
they've got the Dolphins in week 16, but I don't think he helps you get there.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty much a good point. I think the scary thing with Joe, oh my goodness, the Bengals are just such a mess. I don't even know what I can say about them, honestly.
Yeah, the line is just so bad.
Yeah.
And I've even, I'm hanging on to AJ Green.
Yeah, me too.
In a
one
couple
league.
of leagues, I've debated just like dropping him, but I don't think you can drop him. I guess I think he's going to come back after the bye, maybe in week 10.
I hope so.
Because he's not back this week. I can't
Yeah.
imagine he's going to come back against the Rams
Mm-mm.
when their bye is in week 9.
Right.
So then after that, it's not like he doesn't have a cakewalk of games. It's
Mm-mm.
he's got the Ravens who've just upgraded their cornerback
Yeah.
situation. Oakland has not been terrible. Pittsburgh's pass defense is good.
Yeah.
He's got the Jets then, and then Cleveland, if their cornerbacks are healthy, then he's got the Patriots. So I think I'm really more hanging on to him based on the possibility that he gets traded than a lot of production.
Yeah, but I mean, scary thing with that is that like the owner has said he's not going to be traded. They said the same thing. They said the same thing about Jalen Ramsey too.
Right.
So man, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say.
Not saying anything.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say. I mean, a lot of times, and that may be true. The Bengals are just notoriously stubborn. I mean, look at how long they hung on to Marvin Lewis. So they're stubborn, and that may be true, but you can't really count on that because a lot of times it's just posturing to say like, okay, if you don't wow us with a deal, we're not gonna, give him up. And in reality, they just want like a first round pick or something, and nobody's offering them that. So
it's just like holding up a sign, help.
Yeah, right. So we'll see. I mean, you can't really drop him, but it's just painful. Like if you've got somebody else that could go in that IR spot, and you're just sitting there wondering, like, is he going to come back? Is he going to, do anything? So I don't know.
Yeah. See, the annoying thing about AJ Green for me is because I picked him up the last week. Someone had dropped him in one of my leagues, and my IR spot was free. So I was like, sure, I'll get him. And even though he's going to be out for the next couple weeks, and Yahoo keeps listing him as questionable, which means you can't pick up anyone.
I think this is my biggest pet peeve with Yahoo is that they I guess they're doing it based off of what he's tech. Yeah. But there's so many times where a guy has been out, there's no sign that he's coming back, and so he gets ruled out late in the week. But then when it comes back around to like Tuesday, he goes to questionable. And so
before waivers.
That is my single biggest gripe is that, I've got guys like, I don't want to drop them, but what do I do? And so there's been a couple of weeks lately where I've felt pretty good about my roster, and I just haven't ended up dropping anybody because you can at least leave that person in your IR spot and make changes within your team.
Right.
You just can't claim anybody new. And so, so I've done that. So there's been times where I'm like, okay, there's nobody on waivers that I really want. And maybe I've got, so maybe I've got a kicker on a bye, or maybe I've got a defense on a bye. All of the really good ones are gone anyway. I'm just going to wait till later in the week when this guy, goes back to being officially IR eligible, and I can pick up somebody else without having to take him off IR, drop someone just to take him off IR, drop someone else to pick up that kicker or defense. So that I am right there with you though. That is the most annoying thing probably about the system.
My goodness, I can't even get into that even more. You pretty much summed that up absolutely perfectly. Oh boy. I've got one probably last question for you, unless you have any other startums or situms.
I don't
all
really.
right.
I think that kind of covers it for me.
All right, sounds good. So, Javis, we may have a problem. I don't understand what's going on in Cleveland. I don't understand. Odell is up and down. Jarvis is the Will Fuller of the Cleveland Browns. And I'm not going to talk about Mayfield. I have my own pet peeves with him. But do you think, like, even Odell, is he even startable this week? Because, like, on the one hand, it's like the same Hopkins situation you've got. It's like, well, he's Odell. You got to start him. But the Browns offense is bad.
Yeah. So they come back next week, with New England.
Yeah.
They come back from the bye. This is Odell's schedule. Again, I had Odell in 4 leagues. I've traded him in 2 already, and I'm trying to trade him. I'm trying to trade him in the other 2.
Wow.
Because when they come back off the bye, they've got at New England. They just shut down your top receiver. At Denver, they've got a very good pass defense. I think they're technically like number 1 against receivers or something like that, even though Tyreek Hill got that, big play and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Then Buffalo, and then Pittsburgh, again, good pass defense.
Yeah.
Then they get the Dolphins, and then they get Pittsburgh again,
of course.
and then Cincinnati, and then at Arizona, which, Arizona they've got Patrick Peterson back. Maybe he gets traded, maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I'm done with Odell. I'm going to try to trade him. I've traded him in 2 leagues already. Once for Kenny Golladay and once for Tyreek Hill.
Yeah.
If I can get anybody along those lines.
Nice. You got Hill. That's a nice one.
It was a 2-for-2 deal. It was, but I think I won on both accounts in some ways because I traded Odell and Aaron Jones for Hill and Derrick Henry. And
that's not bad.
And so, coming off that Cowboys game, I knew when Jamal Williams came back that they were probably going to be splitting, he and Aaron Jones.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. So I felt good about that. And Golladay, Galladay's good week to week.
Yeah.
He's got the Bucks in the fantasy playoffs. So yeah, I feel pretty good about him. If I can get anybody like that, I'm just done with Odell. I think that situation is, late in the season, they've got some games they can win, but I think, for the next month, how is Odell he hasn't been doing that well against average to mediocre defenses.
Yeah.
What's he going to do with good pass defenses?
Oh yeah.
And I'm afraid that by the time they get to a handful of games where he can play well, the situation in Cleveland may have deteriorated so much. I mean, Odell's just emotional. And I don't know what's going to be going on there. So I would say I would give the same advice that I'm using for myself is I'm desperately trying to trade him for, a comparable option. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have Odell in any league because that was one of the risks I was not willing to take anywhere. Like, I know I always talk about like diversifying your fantasy portfolio, but I was like, not Odell.
Yeah, that was smart. And I did that with some guys. I didn't draft Antonio Brown anywhere until my last draft, which was 2 days before the season started. And I'm like, okay, I think we're good. I was wrong in that one league. I didn't draft any Vikings wide receivers. And I really shouldn't have drafted Odell. I think it goes back to, there's certain points about fantasy football that you really just need to live by and not deviate from. And one of those is don't take receivers on new teams. That just doesn't, like, that first year, it just generally doesn't work out well. And so don't take receivers on new teams, and kind of on the same line, like, don't chase last year's points,
Yeah, that's true.
So Patrick Mahomes, how many people drafted Mahomes in the second or third round? And he's even before the injury, let's see. I mean, he'll get a 7-point boost from last week's or from the Thursday night game.
Yeah.
But let's see what he was even with that. We'll see what he is in the overall QB standings. He is even with that, he's just 4th. And so he's already played another game.
Mm-hmm.
So he hasn't had his bye yet. So he's 4th in the standings after these guys have their games this week, and they're on the same level, I mean, he's probably going to drop to, let's see, there's, at least 3 guys within range of him. So basically you paid a 2nd or 3rd round pick for a guy who after the first 7 weeks of the season is going to be like the number 7 quarterback.
Yeah.
And it's kind of the same thing with, people drafted the Chicago defense really high, which
that's true.
The Chicago defense is good. They've been good, but last I checked,
5, I think, right?
I think that's what Judah said last week is that they were 5. So again, people are using a high pick on, let's see, they're actually, Kansas City jumped up because of that game, but
and the Bears have had a bye too.
And the Bears have had a bye, yeah. But a lot of the teams, a couple of the teams ahead of them, have had a bye too. So, so for like what would be, the 3rd or 4th best defense, people just again burned some places like a 7th, 8th round pick, something like that. So I think that just goes to the thing of like, don't chase last year's points. It's a tough league to repeat the same thing in, and you're going to have some really rare guys like a McCaffrey or somebody that can perform year in and year out, but otherwise, you have to kind of it's almost to the point where you have to avoid the guys who did well last year because it's going to be new guys this year.
Yeah. Even though, I mean, to some respect, you have to pay some respect to consistency too.
Yeah.
But there are like exceptions, there are exceptions. I mean, one hit wonders sometimes. I mean, Odell's been relatively consistent, but for me, it's just if someone's had any kind of problem before, I typically try to steer clear of them, which is why Hopkins and Kelsey had been some of my favorites because they had been fine for years with basically, for the most part, no problems. Right. And it had been harder for me to pick up people like Odell because they'd been injured. They had problems outside the league. They've been traded. It's just completely messed up. Like the only person who's only ever been able to do well as a wide receiver after being traded was Terrell Owens, and he doesn't count.
Yeah. No, that's exactly right. And that's what, and Judah says that he accuses me when I say like, don't chase last year's numbers. He'll say like, oh no, you do that with Hopkins. And I'm like, no, I'm not chasing last year's numbers with Hopkins. I'm chasing like the last
4 years.
Like 5 years basically. Because from the time, it was his second season, he had, 1,200 yards and 6 touchdowns. So, in 3 of the last 5 years, he's had 11 touchdowns or more and, nearly 1,400 yards or more. So I'm not chasing last year's numbers with him.
Right.
I'm like you, I'm chasing, I will take guys who have just been like consistent year to year to year. And there's been a handful of those guys used to be Antonio Brown before he went crazy, but Antonio Brown, Hopkins, Kelsey, guys like that. So, if a guy is consistent, but if they have like 1 year, one good year, then you really have to kind of, be a little bit leery of some regression.
Yeah. Oh man, we're gonna get stuck on that for a long time.
Yeah.
I got one more question for you, probably before we finish this up.
Yeah.
The Dallas Cowboys the Dallas Cowboys. Everyone after the first 3 weeks saw the Cowboys and were thinking, "Oh my goodness, they are insane! They're gonna make a run at the Super Bowl." And then everyone realized they played the Giants, Redskins, and Dolphins.
Yeah.
You had 3 of the worst defenses in the NFL. And then they played genuinely good teams. They played the Saints, the Packers, and now they just lost to the Jets. So is Dak Prescott a trustworthy quarterback going forward? What do you think?
Well, it's hard to define exactly trustworthy. I think Dak is gonna put up solid points for you most weeks. But I'm actually, that is a guy. I'll put it this way. I'm trying to sell high on him.
Okay.
So, his only bad game was at New Orleans.
Yeah.
And in a dome against a good team, that's a tough place to play. But I think there are, but again, you look at some of his schedule coming up, like in the short term, it's still fine. He gets Philadelphia this week. He's got a bye. He's got the Giants. Then it starts getting a little tougher. You've got Minnesota,
Xavier Rhodes
at Detroit, Darius Slay. You've got at New England. I want no part of him there.
Gilmore.
He's got Buffalo and then Chicago, and then the first week of the fantasy playoffs is the Rams.
Jalen Ramsey.
Which, with Ramsey now, I don't know exactly. I mean, they got destroyed by Tampa in a home game, but with Ramsey, I don't know how that's going to change. Yeah. So I'm basically trying to sell high on him, and I'm picking up some guys like Allen or I think even Darnold. Darnold's got a really good schedule. So I don't have. Some people have this weird loyalty to players of like, how this guy got me there. And Matt Harmon, who for Yahoo actually did a thing on that this week, and he was talking about the same thing where he was like, it's just weird. Like these guys don't know that they're on your team. You don't have to be loyal to them, And so that's why I'm willing to make like mid-season trades for guys who have been phenomenal for me. But something has changed, and I think I need to sell high on them, or their playoff schedule is brutal, or something like that. So I think Dak is a guy that you go look for a team that needs a quarterback. Maybe they just lost Patrick Mahomes, or maybe they already they drafted poorly, and so they've been like streaming guys week to week. And I've tried to peddle him off, just like in that trade for Christian McCaffrey. Like I traded Dak for Wentz in that deal, and Wentz has a tough short-term schedule too, but when you get to the fantasy playoffs, he gets Washington. So I kind of trust him a little bit better against Washington than I do Dak against the Rams, even though, again, that's really like looking far out and predicting things. But I felt good about that, as part of a deal to get Christian McCaffrey. Like I'll, do that deal in a heartbeat. So, so I think he's still a guy you can go with. But I think there are just, young guys who have a good schedule coming up that if you can use Dak as trade bait and go with one of them, you're probably better off.
Yeah. It's kind of funny because I've been playing fantasy football for a while, but this year was the first year I ever made a trade. Actually, I ever accepted a trade. Wow. Which is really crazy. So one of my friends who's in a league with me said, I'm literally going to trade you this. I don't even know if it's a good trade or not. But I think I gave him like David Montgomery, and then I gave away Dante Moncrief because I had no faith in him. Okay. But I got Devin Singletary and Will Fuller. So everything pretty much canceled out in the long run anyway. But this was the first year I ever had accepted a trade because I'm kind of one of the guys who likes, if I took this guy in the draft or I picked them up, that means I have confidence in them that I want them going forward. So I fall into kind of the trap of like, this person's been producing for me, or this person's taking me to the championship. Yeah. Like I'll always love Marvin Jones forever, even though I don't have him on any of my teams. So I'm a little bit victim to that.
Yeah, I get that. Well, I can give you one crazier. Is there's a guy in one of my leagues this year, and I saw that he's finally broken out of it because he made 3 moves this week. But up until this week, he had made 0 moves.
Whoa.
And here's the crazy part.
Okay.
He's in first place.
What?
I'm just sitting here going, what? How? How
What
are you in
is
first
his
place?
team?
Let me go back and look real quick. I closed out of it because I went back to
Oh
look
my
to see. Like,
goodness.
I'm like, all right, which one was it this in again? Okay, so his team is, and I'll see how good of a player he traditionally is too.
Oh
Okay,
goodness.
he's solid. He's
Okay.
he's just a gold level player, but
Okay.
he's got a like a not quite 55% winning percentage, like 547. So that's not
That's
bad.
not
Okay,
bad.
so his team is Russell Wilson. And
Yeah.
then his receivers really aren't that good. It's been like Fitzgerald, Boyd, Josh Gordon,
Interesting.
Deshaun Jackson, Sterling Shepard.
Yikes.
So not that good. His running backs have been David Johnson, James Conner. That's really been about it. And then tight end, he's had Greg Olson. He's had the Chicago D and Butker as his kicker.
That's
So
not bad.
let's see what his point total is here, because I
Can't
feel like
believe this.
okay. So basically, he's just been fortunate that he's not.
Easiest schedule in the league.
He's had the easiest schedule in the
There
league.
we go.
So everybody else has well, okay. So everybody else, with the exception of one other team,
Yeah.
has at least like 675 points scored against them.
Yeah.
One other team has like 647. They're a little bit
Yeah.
below 650. He has 563 scored
Got
against
to
him.
be kidding me.
So that's his thing, is he hasn't
Oh my
he hasn't
goodness.
been good. He's just had
Lucky.
a fortunate schedule where he's had generally like more than 100 fewer points scored against him, and yet somehow I think I gotta look real quick and see. I think last week was the first week that he lost. I think he was. Let's see if he was no, he won last week. So but yeah, he only, I mean, he's 5-1 off that, and he's got like the second, fewest points scored in the league. So.
Oh my! So he hasn't been winning games. Other people have been losing them.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. But I just thought that was crazy. Like I saw that and I'm like, how has he not made a single move and still winning?
Oh my goodness! Wow. Well, I think that's pretty much gonna wrap us up, unless you've got anything else.
No, I think I'm just happy. I'm proud that we broke the 2-hour mark this week, because we've been getting close. We've been like 150 plus 153, and I was like, oh, we might as well just go ahead and just push it over the edge and go to 2 hours. And I'm glad we broke that mark this week.
Yeah, there we go. We hit a milestone. Today.
Yeah.
Oh man, thanks everybody for tuning in. Ryan and Thomas H, thanks for all your questions. Be sure not to put Christian McCaffrey in any slot at all, even though he's on a bye. We will be advocating for the NFL rent-a-player, but as of right now, that won't be happening.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for watching. I had to get my Marvel reference in there for the day. Anyway, my name is AJ Herschel. Okay, that's right side. That is Jared. Judah Buddha isn't with us anymore, but he was on earlier, and that's the StreamYard Duck. And thank you all very much for watching the RotoHackers podcast. Catch us again on Tuesday at 9 Central PM, where you can hear about your waiver wire pickups. We'll see you next time, everyone.